Hey everyone, FLW Pro John Boyles here. I just want to do a quick recap on our second stop of the 2020 FLW Pro Circuit. It was on Harris Chain in Leesburg, Florida. Overall, I had a horrible event. I finished 138th out of 154. So pretty disappointed with that, but we'll kind of go into some things that happened and all that stuff. But first and foremost, I'll start off with my practice. Harris Chain, it's a pretty neat little place. There's, I don't know how many different lakes, 8, 9, 10 maybe different lakes that you can fish. Last time we were there, Lake Harris itself was a big player because it had a lot of hydrilla, offshore hydrilla and stuff. Over the last year or so, they've done a lot of spraying. Well, I don't know if they've spraying, but dropped pellets or something. Anyways, long story short, a lot of the hydrilla is gone in Harris. There were a few places that still had it, but very little compared to last time we were there. So my first practice day, I went down to Lake Apopka, and it's like the farthest lake away from where we're taking out of. It takes a long time to get there. Tournament-wise, you're probably looking at an hour and a half before you even fishing. It was a player last time we were there, so I wanted to give it a little bit in practice. I gave myself 3 or 4 hours the first practice day, and I caught some fish down there, but it just didn't really set up for how I like to fish. So I kind of wrote it off pretty quick. And so then about lunchtime on day one, I trailered back up out of Apopka, and I went and put in Little Harris, and had a little deal going on in there that I thought I could catch some. I was catching a lot of fish, and I caught 1 4-pounder, which was nice. So then day 2, I thought, well, I'm going to go to Lake Griffin. Lake Griffin is pretty much a fish factory. It's got tons of fish in it, lots of offshore grass, kind of stuff that typically I kind of like to do. I throw chatterbait, jerkbait, rattle trap, stuff like that. And I caught some random good fish that practice day, but I didn't have it dialed in as good as I thought, or wanted for that matter. So the third practice day, I thought, well, I'm going to go back to Griffin and we're going to do a little more searching around. And actually I had a really good last practice day. I probably had well over 20 pounds in my best 5. It wasn't just, wasn't just sitting in an area doing something. I go over here and fish for a little bit, catch a good one, go over here, fish for a little bit, catch a good one. It's just one of those days where, I caught fish all day long. It was just a fun day. So my game plan kind of going into it, I had a good boat draw at Rayburn in the first tournament, and I was in the first flight. So I really kind of figured I would be in a later flight. And it takes about an hour to get up to Griffin because you have to lock as well. And I really thought I would start off in Little Harris and fish around there for about an hour or 2 and then lock up to Griffin and finish the day. Well, when I got my boat number, I was in the second flight, so that kind of pretty much threw that out the window. Day 1 I went straight to the lock, and I was the second group to go through the lock. It can only hold 9 boats at a time, so it does take some time when half the field is locking up into Griffin. So I finally get up to my spot on day 1 of the tournament. I really had 2 generalized areas where there seemed like groups of fish. Like I say, it's just a big flat, and it's got grass for miles. And I had 2 kind of areas. One was real close to where when you come out of the river into Griffin. It's kind of a community area. It has there's a lot of boats in there in practice, and I just didn't feel that I wanted to necessarily fish right in the group of 30, 40, 50 anglers. Very rarely we ever win a tournament doing that. So I started actually on another group of waypoints that I had that was farther to the north, and I thought I had a better shot of doing well. And actually, I thought it was a pretty good move because there was really only one or two other boats that kind of floated through my area, weren't really kind of on the spot. So anyways, so that was my game plan. I get up to Griffin on day one, kind of get close to my string of waypoints, put the trolling motor in the water, and about the third cast of the morning, I had a big one follow my rattle trap right to the boat, just never ate it. So I thought, okay, they're going to be active today. Well, about 3 casts later, I hook up with about it was 6+. I mean, it was a big one on the trap. Comes up, jumps, and my rattle trap goes flying over my head. So not a great way to start the event. And then after that, I caught 4 small ones pretty quickly on the trap, and then it just seemed like I kind of went forever before I finally got my 5th bite. At the end of the day, I had a small limit, and then about 20 minutes before I had to go back to the lock to lock back, I finally get another good bite. It's a 4+. Comes up and jumps, and same thing, come off. I put all new hooks on my trap. In practice, of course, you never lose them during practice. But I don't know if they just weren't eating the bait as well or what, but that one came off too, and that definitely hurt. So I weighed a limit. It was 7 pound something. Not very good. Had an opportunity, for 13, 14, 15 pounds, if I catch those other 2 fish, and just would put me right where I needed to be. So I was pretty frustrated, to say the least, after day one. So going out and eating dinner with my buddies, or my roommates, that night, I told them, well, for me to get back into this thing, day 2, gonna go back up there, and for me, when I've caught really good bags of fish, a chatterbait is, on a grass lake is, to me, it's the bait. I told myself I was going to lock a chatterbait in my hand on day 2 and never put it down, and that was kind of my game plan going into it. Well, of course, day 2, I fished on Harris for about an hour, because I just didn't want to go sit at the lock and just wait. So I didn't catch anything the first hour, so then I ran to the lock. Finally got locked through, and for whatever reason, I didn't pick up my chatterbait. I don't know why. I have no explanation. But I started off with the trap. It was post-frontal. It was windy. Not a very good fishing day in Florida. And anyways, I ended up catching, I think, 4 on a jerk bait, just little guys. Caught my 5th one on a speed worm. And about 20 minutes left to go in the day before I have to run back to lock through. I mean, it just hits me like a light, hey, pick up a chatterbait. And so literally I pick it up, first cast, I catch one that calls. It's probably my best one of the day, which, I mean, obviously my weight wasn't very big, but it was the best one I had so far that day. And so at this point, I'm just kind of fishing around, kind of get up close to another waypoint, go out there, hook up, comes up, jumps. It's 5 pounder, 5.5, I don't know. It is another big one. I had my net draping over my seat in the back of the boat. That's unprepared. That's on me. So I go to the back deck, get the net off, still have the fish on. He kind of comes up, he's still pretty green, and jumps by the boat, and then he runs under the boat and gets hung up. The only thing I can figure is either on my jack plate or my transducer. I mean, the odds of that happening, I don't know what they are, but it's just kind of the way my week went. Anyways, I ended up losing that fish as well. So I had a lot of opportunities to do good or decent. I mean, I wasn't on the fish to win, but you know, I truly think I had the fish on for a mid 30 place, I'd say. I really think I could easily added 13 to 15 pounds onto what I ended up catching between those 3 fish that I lost. So it is disappointing in my finish, but I do appreciate the fact that I was at least around them, and I don't discount the fact that I was doing the right thing. I think I made a good decision fishing away from the crowd versus in the big group of 50 boats that were fishing out there. I just kind of went off and did my own thing, and sometimes they just come off and you just have bad tournaments, and so anyways, moving forward, I'll leave again in a couple weeks to go to Lake Martin in Alabama. I've never been there. It's it has a lot of spotted bass in it, some largemouth. From research that I've done, it seems like a lake where 10 to 12 pounds a day is pretty good. There are some big ones in there, but if you can consistently catch that 11 to 12 pounds, I think you'll do really good in the tournament. Clear water for the most part. I know they had some rain and the lakes come up a little bit, and there is some color in the water, but definitely looking forward to getting down there. It's kind of right up my alley. I love to throw jerk bait and swim bait and stuff like that. One of my sponsors is Bite Me Tackle. They're from Indiana. This is their hunter head, and for those of you that are throwing a Kitech or whatever, this is a 3.3 Kitech. A lot of times on certain jig heads, you might only catch 1 or 2 fish before your bait's coming off or whatever. But I mean, this thing is like stuck on there, and that's with no super glue. It's called the Hunter Head by Bite Me Tackle. Great, super sharp hook. They also have shaky heads or ball heads. You can get them in 50 bags, which I really like. You can go to bitemetackle.net, search them on the web, and get those 50 bags. And I use a lot of the ball heads for my swim baits as well at times. Anyways, sometimes there's not a lot of difference between having a horrible finish and what you could have had a good finish. Just a few fish here and there, or a key decision here or there can really make or break you sometimes. But I feel good. I was around the fish last tournament, and we'll just have to shake this one off and move forward, and ready to get back out there and go to Lake Martin. Other than that, boat ran great as always. Phoenix 21 PHX, Mercury 4-stroke. It's amazing. One other thing, in practice at Harris, it really wasn't too windy at all. It's about perfect, really. And on that big flight I was telling you about, if you haven't seen the Garmin Panoptix Live Scope, I mean, you're missing out. I mean, I can turn the head of my trolling motor and I can see out 75 feet or so, and you could see these clumps of eelgrass. There's some clumps of hydrilla, but it wasn't just like a constant. It was like, you go for maybe 50 yards and there'd be a clump, and go 50 yards, there'd be a clump over here. And in practice, when it really wasn't windy, I could really scan around and kind of see these clumps and make precise casts rather than just blind cast and hope I reel across one. In the tournament with all the wind, it made it a lot more difficult, to control the boat and do that. I was able to do it a little bit, but in general it was tough. But like I say, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Garmin LiveScope Panoptics, Google search it. There's all kinds of different videos out there. It's just amazing. So anyway, that's all I got, and see you next time.